The global trade landscape is a battlefield. Countries are locking horns in a bitter trade war. The United States, Canada, and China are the main contenders in this economic brawl. Tensions have been simmering for years, with each nation accusing the others of unfair trade practices. Tariffs have become the weapon of choice, leaving businesses and consumers caught in the crossfire. In 2025, the United States ignited a firestorm. It was a bold move that would ripple through the global economy, affecting not just the U.S. but also its closest allies and trading partners. The U.S. government slapped heavy tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, including those from Canada. These tariffs were not just minor adjustments, they were significant, aimed at reshaping the landscape of international trade. These tariffs, a hefty 25%, sent shockwaves through the Canadian economy. Businesses that relied on exporting steel to the U.S. suddenly found themselves in a precarious position, facing potential losses and operational challenges. Canada, a major steel exporter, was directly in the line of fire. The Canadian steel industry, which had long been a cornerstone of the nation's economy, was now grappling with an uncertain future. The tariffs threatened jobs, businesses, and the entire steel industry. Workers feared for their livelihoods and companies scrambled to find new markets or ways to cut costs. The U.S. argued that these tariffs were necessary. Politicians and industry leaders claimed that the measures were essential to protect American jobs and industries from unfair competition. They claimed it was for national security and to protect American jobs. The narrative was that a strong domestic steel industry was vital for the country's defense and economic stability. However, critics argued that the tariffs were more about protectionism than security. They pointed out that the move could lead to trade wars, higher prices for consumers, and strained relations with key allies. Economists warned that the tariffs could backfire, leading to retaliatory measures from other countries. This could result in a cycle of protectionism that would ultimately harm global trade and economic growth. In response, Canada announced its own set of counter-tariffs, targeting a range of American products. The trade tensions between the two nations escalated, with both sides digging in their heels. The impact of these tariffs was felt far beyond the steel and aluminum industries. Supply chains were disrupted, and businesses across various sectors had to navigate the new trade landscape. As the dust settled, it became clear that the tariffs had reshaped the dynamics of international trade. Companies had to adapt to the new reality, finding ways to mitigate the impact and continue their operations. The long-term effects of these tariffs are still unfolding, but one thing is certain: the decision to impose them marked a significant turning point in the global economic landscape. Canada refused to back down. In retaliation, they imposed their own tariffs on a range of U.S. goods. These tariffs targeted key American exports, hitting back at industries in several states. China, another major player in this trade war, also felt the heat. They were already subject to U.S. tariffs, but the situation escalated further. China retaliated with tariffs on Canadian products, targeting agricultural exports. The trade war was now a three-way standoff, with no clear winner in sight. The economic consequences of this trade war are far-reaching. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, predicts a global economic slowdown. Growth forecasts have been revised downwards, painting a bleak picture for the future. The US, Canada, and Mexico are all expected to experience slower economic growth. Inflation is on the rise, eroding purchasing power and putting a strain on household budgets. Businesses are grappling with uncertainty, hesitant to invest and expand. The dream of a perfect vacation is slipping away for many families. The rising tide of inflation and the uncertainty of the economic landscape are taking a toll on travel plans. The trade war's impact is being felt in unexpected places: vacation plans. Families who once looked forward to their annual trips are now finding themselves in a bind. The cost of everything from flights to accommodations has skyrocketed, making it difficult for many to justify the expense. Canadians, facing a weakened currency and a more expensive US dollar, are reconsidering their travel plans. The exchange rate has made it more costly to travel to the US, and the added expenses are causing many to rethink their vacation destinations. The once affordable trips are now a financial burden. The cost of flights, accommodation, and even everyday expenses in the US has surged. Hotels that were once within budget are now out of reach, and the price of dining out has increased significantly. This has led to a noticeable decline in the number of Canadian tourists visiting popular U.S. destinations. For many Canadians, a U.S. vacation is now simply out of reach. The financial strain is too great. and the uncertainty of the economic situation only adds to the hesitation. Families are opting to stay closer to home, seeking more affordable vacation options within Canada, or even postponing their travel plans altogether. The economic uncertainty fueled by the trade war has made people hesitant to spend on discretionary items like travel. The ripple effects are being felt across the travel industry, from airlines to hotels to local attractions. As families tighten their belts, the dream of a vacation becomes a distant memory, replaced by the reality of financial prudence and caution. The trade war has also strained political relations between the United States and Canada. The U.S.'s aggressive rhetoric and threats haven't sat well with Canadians. The special relationship between the two countries has been tested. In Canada, there's a growing sense of frustration and resentment towards the U.S. Some Canadians are even calling for a boycott of American goods. Section 7. Travel restrictions. A new frontier in the trade war? Adding fuel to the fire, the U.S. has floated the idea of stricter travel regulations for Canadians. These proposed regulations include increased scrutiny at the border, potential registration requirements, and even fingerprinting for longer stays. While still under consideration, these potential restrictions have further dampened Canadians' enthusiasm for U.S. travel. The message is clear. Traveling to the U.S. is becoming more complicated and potentially less welcoming. War, coupled with the potential for increased travel restrictions, has prompted Canadians to rethink their relationship with the U.S. The U.S. has long been the top destination for Canadian travelers, but that may be changing. Canadians are now exploring alternative vacation spots, both domestically and internationally. Countries with more favorable exchange rates and welcoming immigration policies are becoming increasingly attractive. Section 9. The future of travel uncertainty reigns. The future of Canadian travel to the U.S. remains uncertain. With the ever-changing political landscape, travelers are left wondering what new regulations might be imposed. Will there be stricter border controls? Will visa requirements change? These questions loom large in the minds of many. The outcome of the trade war has added another layer of complexity. Trade relations between the two countries have always been a cornerstone of their economic partnership. However, recent tensions have cast a shadow over this relationship. Businesses that rely on cross-border trade are particularly anxious about what the future holds. The potential for new travel restrictions is a constant concern. Security measures at airports and border crossings have already become more stringent. Travelers now face longer wait times and more thorough inspections. The possibility of additional restrictions only adds to the uncertainty. The overall political climate will all play a role. Political decisions made in Washington and Ottawa have far-reaching implications. Protests and political movements can influence policy changes, which in turn affect travel regulations. The dynamic nature of politics means that travelers must stay informed and be prepared for sudden changes. One thing is certain. The landscape of travel has been irrevocably altered. The once straightforward process of crossing the border has become more complicated. Airports that were once bustling with activity now see fewer travelers. The impact of these changes is felt by airlines, travel agencies, and tourists alike. The trade war serves as a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy. When two major economies like the US and Canada experience tension, the effects are felt worldwide. Stock markets react, international trade routes are disrupted, and businesses must adapt to new realities. Decisions made in Washington have ripple effects felt in homes and businesses across the border and around the world.